a certain country. So once we speak about the colonialism in Africa, it was the period when the European power came and dominated the African continent economically, politically, and socially by importing and bringing their culture, their way of life, their civilization in Africa, and also by forcing the African to go or to be humble to their political will, and also by forcing the Africans to manufacture, to cultivate, to do each and everything for the benefit of European economy. So that can be taken as the definition of colonialism, that the situation whereby one country dominates another country economically, politically, and socially. So once, for instance, African had been with its own traditional leadership, where the African chiefs, local leaders, were leading their people by using their administrative system before the coming of Europeans. So after the coming of Europeans, these African chiefs had no mandate or had no authority to exercise their power over their people. So their power was taken by these European power. So it seems like these European powers, they took what we call political power from the African leaders. And also speaking about the economic being. The Africans had their own economy. They were cultivating, they were conducting trades. We have good example like long distance trade and trans-Saharan trade, which were conducted in Western Africa. These trades were conducted by Africans. But once the European power came in this continent, they established their own economy, which had to benefit them and their metropolitan industries. So here, it's when we say that Africa also had been dominated economically. So once we speak also about the social domination of Africa, it was how the European tried to insert their civilization in Africa, things like their culture, which includes their language to be taught in the African continent, and also things like religion, because before the coming of Europeans, our ancestors, or the African ancestors, our ancestors kept on believing in their own ancestors, or the Africans had their own belief where they believed in their ancestors. They did not have Christianity. The Europeans were the ones who brought Christianity in the African continent. So this was among of the things which you can say that the culture phenomenon was also changed. Not only that, but also the European brought colonial education. The African, we had our own education, it was what we call informal education. Basically, people were practically taught how to handle or to encounter the environment, like how to cultivate, how to hunt, how to behave in front of elders, having big moral, and other things like that. So the European, once they reached in the African continent, they took African culture, or they despised the African culture. They neglected the African political system, and also they destroyed the African economy. So basically, in combination of that, or in the articulated combination of those things, we say that the Africans were now under the colonial domination. So we have to trace the colonial domination, or the colonial, we have to trace the colonialism in Africa, how it started. So colonialism in Africa had been the process, we as have said, which involved many things. Among of them were what we call